website at themvp.com for a free case review.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call on me, your MVP. Make some noise and go ahead and celebrate good times. Come on.
KBLA Talk 1580 is pleased to announce a can't-miss community event.
It's a celebration.
Welcome home, Mayor-elect Karen Bass.
You gotta be kidding me.
On Saturday, December 10th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., join KBLA Talk 1580 in Leimert Park at the intersection of Leimert and Vernon for this free public event as we celebrate Mayor-elect Bass's historic victory. There'll be live performances from Brian McKnight, Wapale, Club Nouveau, and more. There'll be food trucks and a diverse array of vendors, along with the attendance and participation from community leaders, elected officials, celebrities, business owners, and other notables. KBLA Talk 1580 will host Mayor-elect Bass on the main stage at 11 a.m. as we reflect on the importance of this moment and what it means for the Black community, women, and all Angelinos who believe in the limitless potential of our amazing city. We look forward to celebrating with Mayor-elect Karen Bass and you, Saturday, December 10th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the intersection of Leimert and Vernon.
It's a celebration.
This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We gon' celebrate your party with you. Come on, come on now.
We've got a lot to talk about.
1, 2, 3, go! I'm gonna try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, oh wait. But I'll be alright as long as I can find the good. Yes, I will. Yeah. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. All right. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. Yes, I will. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back in style again.
Live from Leimert Park, USA, I'm Tavis Smiley, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to see you and me back in stride again. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. All of our socials can be found at KBLA 1580. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, everything at KBLA 1580. Let me also invite you to download our app right now by going to download the app by going to Facebook. It's one of those days. Download our app by going to the App Store, Spotify, anywhere. So many places to get the app of our program and listen at your leisure. Should you miss us any day in real time, check out the podcast of this program by going to the app, the website, Anchor, Spotify, so many places to get the podcast and listen at your leisure should you miss us any day in real time. But I am delighted to have you along live with us today. I don't know what that was about. Just my mind just left me for a second about how to get our app. It's pretty simple. You go to the App Store and download the app and take us with you anywhere in the world and listen to us in real time. Delighted to have you along, though, live with us today for the next 3 hours. You can also watch the live stream of this program by tapping the KBLA TV icon on our app or by going to our YouTube channel. Let me also invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Another great show on tap for you today in our second hour. What's it like being a longtime drug addict and witnessing 50 or 60 deaths from overdose, including your wife? We will tell you how that reality impacted Thomas Gooch, how it spurred his current work and witness, and how unequal access to treatment has caused the opioid epidemic to surge in the Black community. Thomas Gooch joins us today in hour two. In our third hour, two conversations. Up first, this year's NAACP Image Award winner for outstanding literary work, Crystal Wilkinson, joins us to talk about her book of poetry, Perfect Black. On the B side of hour three, starting 2 years ago with mostly double-digit views per video, The Hollingsworth family never imagined that their children's YouTube series, Gracie's Corner, would grow into a national sensation, racking up tens of millions of views per month. An educational cartoon for children featuring mostly black and brown characters, the channel introduces soulful nursery rhymes incorporated with elements of hip-hop, reggae, Afrobeat, and pop, all voiced by the Hollingsworth's daughter, Gracie. The family-friendly content highlights black culture, breaks boundaries in education, and empowers viewers, as you might imagine, in a very unique way. We will talk with the patriarch of the Hollingsworth family, Dr. Javaris Hollingsworth, on the backside of Hour 3. But in this first hour today, let's talk politics with influential commentator, best-selling author, and former Clinton White House aide, Keith Boykin. Keith, it's been far too long, my friend. How are you, sir?
I'm doing really well, Tavis. How you doing?
I think I'm okay. I got to wake up, man. It's one of those. We've been pushing really hard around here. We have a big event celebrating Karen Bass this weekend. I need some sleep, which is funny because we had an hour conversation yesterday about what happens when you are deprived of sleep, and that's exactly what happens. You just have a brain loss in the middle of a conversation. But I'm doing well. Otherwise, how are you doing, my friend?
I understand completely what that means, not to have sleep. That's been my life for the past year, and especially after yesterday. I'm glad the election results came in early out of Georgia, so I had to stay up all night watching that.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was up last night waiting for some numbers to come in, and I was concerned because this race was so tight at one point. We were told that even earlier in the day yesterday, as I recall, we were told by authorities in Georgia that they might not have results same day, same night. That did not turn out to be the case. Let's start right there. What do you make of the fact that this race, again, that had been so close, turned out to be not so close last night?
Well, it turned out to be not so close after a long nail-biter of an evening.
Mm-hmm.
And partly that was because of the way the votes are reported, as you know, because the first votes that came in, the first tranche, were early votes. And the early votes predominantly swing toward the Democrats, and so Raphael Warnock took an early lead. Then the same-day votes came in after that, and those votes tend to swing more toward the Republicans. So then we saw Herschel Walker take the lead. And then we saw a seesaw going back and forth all night between the two candidates until later in the evening. And finally, it was clear that based on the precincts that were unreported, that Herschel Walker was not performing up to where he needed to be in order to win the election, and that Raphael Warnock was going to win.
Yeah. There's so much to talk about, and I'm glad we got the hour. We'll spend some time on this and then move to some other issues because there are obviously some tentacles that offshoot the result in Georgia last night for the Senate, for a divided Congress, for Donald Trump, for Joe Biden, all kinds of issues to talk about in this hour with Keith Boykin. But let me come at this another way. Again, at earlier points in this process, this race had been much, much tighter. What do you make of the fact that in the end, Raphael Warnock was able to pull this out, and the numbers that I've been looking at suggest that he delivered as Democrats hoped he would deliver in a variety of ways on a number of different levels?
Oh, I see what you're saying, and maybe that was the question I mentioned.
No.
Yeah.
You answered the right. You answered it right the first time. I just want to come at it a different way now. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think Raphael Warnock is an excellent candidate, and he did really well last night. He has run now, 4 races in Georgia in the past 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
The general election last year, the runoff last year, the general election, and the runoff this year. He's proven himself to be a winner in each of those 4 elections. And so I think he has a turnout operation and a ground operation that was very effective. He has a compelling message and a life story that resonates with people. And black voters, quite honestly, turned out for him. Black voters made the difference, to be very blunt and honest. If it were left to white voters, there's no chance that Raphael Warnock would be United States Senator. The majority of white people voted for Herschel Walker. And the majority of white people continue to vote for Republicans all across the country. So black voters essentially saved the Democratic Party last night. And Raphael Warnock, an excellent candidate, of course, we know the heir to Dr. King's legacy as the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, was the candidate that black people wanted to represent us. And if you look at the juxtaposition between Herschel Walker, on the one hand, this football player who once lived in Georgia, was born in Georgia, and played football for the University of Georgia, but has spent the past few decades living in Texas. And they brought him back all the way to Georgia simply because they felt that he was a black candidate who could possibly take on an incumbent black senator. That's the kind of cynical racial identity politics that Republicans have been playing for decades now. And I think the people in Georgia were smart enough to see through that.
Yep. A lot to talk about in this hour with Keith Boykin, just getting started, talking about what happened in Georgia last night and all of the takeaways from that all-important race that now give Democrats 51 votes in the U.S. Senate. A bit of a cushion now, so they don't have to tiptoe perhaps as much around Manchin and Sinema, which I'm tired of talking about for the last couple of years. But again, Keith Boykin, our guest in this hour, former Clinton White House aide, best-selling author, and national political commentator. But today, he's talking to you on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Leaving things half done? Not a good option. Like a half-baked peach cobbler.
A gummy crust? I don't think so.
A half-done hairdo.
All done.
Shouldn't the curls be on both sides?
Or a half of a domino.
Bam! Big 6!
But where's the other half?
Don't go halfway, especially with your immunity to COVID-19. Keep everyone safer this season by staying up to date with your vaccines and boosters. Visit myturn.ca.gov to find one near you. Brought to you by the California Department of Public Health.
If you're a Los Angeles Department of Water and Power residential customer, listen to this. LADWP now offers convenient monthly billing through the new Level Pay program. Level Pay helps you budget for your utility bill with a predictable monthly amount that can also include past due balances. You'll know exactly how much you need to pay each month. Don't wait. Sign up today for Level Pay by calling 1-800-DIAL-DWP. That's 1-800-DIAL-DWP.
The Los Angeles Urban League helps African American and others in underserved communities achieve true social parity, economic self-reliance, and civil rights. For over 100 years, Los Angeles Urban League has ensured our communities have access to careers with living wages, opportunities to start and grow businesses, and clear pathways to personal and professional growth. Programs like BizCamp, Construction Career Academy, Bob Business Ready, and B-Warp. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program are examples of the ongoing events designed to make our centennial mission to rebuild Black Wall Street right here in LA a reality. To sign up for our newsletter or to support the Los Angeles Urban League with your time, talents, and donations, visit laul.org. That's laul.org. The Los Angeles Urban League is a proud sponsor of Urban Family Focus, Saturdays at 7 a.m. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Where can you smell fresh pine from the curbside pickup line? Lowe's, actually. Explore the holiday fun and check off every gift on your list during Winterfest at Lowe's, where you can save $100 on a Blackstone 30-inch flat-top grill, now $299. Or your choice of a DeWalt 20-volt max brushless drill kit or Impact driver kit for just $99. Experience all of the festivities of Winterfest now, only at Lowe's, home to any possibility. Offer valid through 12/21 while supplies last.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Indeed you are. You're listening to Tavis Smiley and Keith Boykin on KBLA Talk 1580, talking about the race last night and a number of other political issues trending issues that we'll get to in this hour. Keith, let me go back to Georgia and stay there for a second. You raised this notion a moment ago of racial identity politics. This is an old conversation. It's well worn, as you certainly know. But what, to your mind, did last night, the results of last night, say to you about racial identity politics in America in the years ahead?
Well, there's two different ways to look at this. One is that Republicans have spent the past 2 decades complaining that Democrats play racial identity politics. And that's why they said they chose Barack Obama and all these other people. And they also said that the same thing about identity politics with Hillary Clinton. But the truth is that Republicans are the ones that played identity politics in the past few years because they do a very cynical thing. Whenever they see black people or women or people of color performing well, they go and try to find somebody to do their thing who's not qualified. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. The Democrats have been picking people who have been qualified to do these jobs. When Democrats almost picked Hillary Clinton in 2008, John McCain went and picked Sarah Palin, who had no experience to be vice president of the United States, but because she was a woman, they picked her. Remember when Thurgood Marshall retired from the Supreme Court? Who did George Bush replace him with? Clarence Thomas, who was completely woefully inadequately qualified to sit on the Supreme Court to replace Thurgood Marshall. And even when Barack Obama ran for the United States Senate, after their original Republican candidate dropped out, who did they pick? Alan Keyes, this no-name Republican black guy from Maryland. They imported him into Illinois to run against Barack Obama because Barack Obama was a black guy. I mean, this is the kind of cynical politics they've been engaging in for years. So it's not surprising they would do the same thing in Georgia. They say, hey, there's a black guy who won in Georgia. Let's get another black guy to run against him because that'll win. Yeah. It's Donald Trump that's taken this to a different level. And I think if there's anything that maybe could come out of this, that maybe the Republicans will slowly start to break their love affair with Donald Trump, but I'm not convinced that that's going to happen. And I think that, like I said, the most important thing for people to understand out of this election is that white Americans continue to vote for Republican candidates, irrespective of how unqualified they are. Herschel Walker is probably one of the most manifestly unqualified candidates I've ever seen to run for the United States Senate on a major party ticket. And you know what? White voters continued to vote for him and support him regardless of that. They were the only racial demographic group in Georgia that supported him. Not black voters, not Hispanic voters, not Asian American voters, not people of color in general. It was only white voters who voted for Herschel Walker. In spite of everything they knew about his lies, in spite of everything they knew about the abortions that he allegedly paid for, in spite of everything they knew about his history of violence toward women, in spite of everything they knew about the record of having no experience, and in spite of everything they knew about him not even living in the state of Georgia, they still voted for him. What does that tell you about race in America? It's not just racial identity politics, it's about race in America. And they wanted somebody like Herschel Walker because they knew they could control him.
I want to come back to that question that you posed just now, not at all hypothetically. What does it tell you about race in America? I want to come back to that, put a pin in it. I also want to come back to your comment about Donald Trump and whether or not this means that they will start to break the love affair with him. We'll come back to that as well. Before I do either of those, well, let me stay with this other comment that you made that I want to give you a chance to unpack for us. And that is whether or not you think that, and I sort of teed this up with one of our guests yesterday, but not in this particular way, Keith, whether or not you think that Democrats this time around were able to stave off a red wave, not because they were so all that and then some, but in part because the Republicans picked so many Herschel Walker-like bad candidates across the country.
I think that's exactly right, Tavis. What happened in state after state, we saw this with Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, with Kari Lake in Arizona, just candidate after candidate, where Republicans picked people because Trump basically coronated that person, people who had no experience in politics, people who were essentially celebrities in the Trump mode, people who were election deniers, and they thought that they could just sort of pull the wool over the eyes of the voters and that they were going to go along with it. But even Mitch McConnell, the Senate Republican leader, was worried about this issue during the summer when he complained that candidate quality was one of the real issues that was facing the Republican Party. Normally, in an off-year election, the midterm election, the party out of power gains seats in the Senate. In this case, this is the first time in 88 years, since 1924, when the party in power, the Democratic Party in this case, has not lost a single seat in a midterm election or in any election like this. This is just unheard of to have something like this happen. So it's a reflection, I think, of just how much they overreached, these MAGA candidates, these extremists, the people who said that the January 6th insurrection was legitimate political discourse. And they tried everything they could, Tavis, in Georgia and other places to try to prevent us from voting. You know, Raphael Warnock spoke about this last night when he talked about don't let anybody assume that just because we won, that means that voter suppression doesn't exist in Georgia. It clearly does. They passed a law to ban water and food to distribution in the long lines that they were creating. They banned voter registration between the general election and the runoff. Last time, thousands of people registered. This time, you couldn't do that. They closed drop-off boxes. They required voter ID just for mail-in ballots, which they've never done before. And they even deputized people to essentially call in what they thought might be cases of fraud if they saw somebody committing fraud, which we know historically, statistically, doesn't even exist. But they wanted to create this perception that the only way black people could win, or the only way Democrats could win, is if they cheated. Instead, they threw every roadblock in the way, and they still lost in the state of Georgia, a Republican state. I mean, it's history. There's only been 11 black senators in history, first of all, as you know. And Raphael Warnock is now the first black Democrat from the South to be elected to a full term in the United States Senate.
No, it was historic, no question about that. Let's get back to these white people that you referenced a moment ago, the good white people in Georgia. The only category that voted for Herschel Walker in that race last night and voted for him overwhelmingly. The data is pretty clear about that. I recall, as do you, Keith Boykin, I think you and I had conversations about this around this time, when Barack Obama was elected, and you remember folks started advancing that notion that we now live in a post-racial America? Yeah, you remember that, right? Yeah. All the conversation about post-racial America. Well, I guess last night, if we needed more evidence that we are not yet in, even after the first black president and the first black vice president, we are not yet living, if we ever will, in a post-racial America. So let me put the question to you that you posed somewhat rhetorically, but I want to pose directly and seriously to you, which is, what do you make of what last night says to us about race relations in this country?
I think we're still a racially divided country. We will continue to be so until our country finally comes to terms with the main issue of white supremacy in our country. You know, there was a statement that Raphael Warnock made years and years ago that the Republicans tried to use against him, where he said the country needs to repent for its history of white supremacy. But he was speaking the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, in South Africa, after they left apartheid in the 1990s, they created a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to go back and look at what happened, to have some sort of accountability. In this country, we have never done that. Yeah. We swept it under the rug, pretended like it didn't happen, and tried to pretend like everybody was equal. When Barack Obama was elected, there were a lot of people, as you know, were saying it was a post-racial America. But the truth is, the majority of white people did not vote for Barack Obama in either of his two elections. They did not vote for him in 2008, and they did not vote for him in 2012. But you know who they did vote for? Donald Trump in two consecutive elections. That alone is the indictment of white America in our racial politics, that white people were willing to vote for an unqualified TV star, celebrity apprentice host, just because he was talking a good game or whatever, with no experience in government. The first president in history elected with no experience whatsoever in government. But they weren't willing to vote for an African-American United States senator who spent his life working on issues that were important to our country, and yet they were still taking credit for him. People like Mitch McConnell were saying, well, we elected a black president. What else do you want? How do you take credit for something you had nothing to do with?
Yeah. During that era where everybody was talking about this post-racial America that we had magically, ushered our way into because of the election of Barack Obama, one of the arguments that I made many, and I know you made many, all of us, were pushing back on this nonsense. At least most of us were. But one of the arguments I made then was that we are not living in a post-racial America. We may be living in a less racist America, but certainly not a post-racial America. I'm wondering if after last night, Keith, I need to rethink my frame about America being even less racist.
Well, I don't think that America's ever become less racist, for the exactly reason I mentioned before. We never had that conversation, that come to Jesus moment where we talk about our history.
Yeah.
And I don't think we will ever become less racist. Just because we have more diversity doesn't change anything. In fact, it actually makes things worse. The subject of my last book, Race Against Time, Politics of a Darkening America, was all about the whole notion of white Americans have become so afraid of the diversity of the country, the black and browning of America, that they are becoming more entrenched. You're going to see more backlash over the course of the next few years and decades. That's why we had an insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th. So I don't think that our country is even anywhere less racist. And the fact that, again, that they voted for Herschel Walker. And, some people say, well, we voted for a black guy, so that shows that we're not racist. We voted for Tim Scott. We voted for Herschel Walker, and we support Clarence Thomas. You notice the only black people they support are the black people who are not supported by the rest of black communities.
Yeah, I take your point. I'm looking at my clock here. I got news, traffic, and sports in 2 minutes. Let me ask you this one, and then we'll continue on the other side. You raised this earlier, and it's been discussed before, but it's worth putting a finer point on the day after, and that is that this particular party which makes the issue of abortion a top priority for them. It's the reason why they stack the Supreme Court the way they do. This issue is sacrosanct for them. They have been running and riding on this issue for many, many years now. And yet in this race, as you pointed out very clearly, and others have as well, they went for a guy who has allegedly paid for a number of these procedures. What does that say to you about the integrity of the right, the integrity of their argument?
Now, you know I can't answer that in the 1 minute you have before you go.
That's why I said. That's why I said get me started. We'll continue, man. I got more time on the other side.
Okay, but it shows the hypocrisy of the party again. Like, how do you say that you're a pro-life party and you believe in family values, and you vote for somebody like Herschel Walker or even Donald Trump? It's a stunning reflection of the fact that I hate when people say that evangelicals believe this, evangelicals believe that. Because the truth is, when they say that, they're talking about white evangelicals, and I need them to speak more precisely about that. Because black evangelicals didn't go vote for Herschel Walker. Black evangelicals didn't go vote for Donald Trump. Black evangelicals understood there was a racial component in our country that still has not been addressed.
And those same
and the white evangelicals.
Yeah, and those same white evangelicals in Georgia could not bring themselves to vote for a black evangelical who pastors King's Church named Raphael Warnock. I mean, that always was fascinating for me. I didn't expect him to cross over in droves, but if ever there is a black candidate you're going to vote for, it would be a black moderate who's pastoring the church of the guy that you all seem to like so much, MLK, who is in fact an evangelical himself. Yeah, and always exactly.
They're always quoting Dr. King, but then when Dr. King, the pastor of Dr. King's church is up for a ballot, they won't even vote for him. They'll vote for an unqualified outsider carpetbagger football player over the pastor of Dr. King's church. Every one of them, they should never be allowed to even mention the words from Dr. King's speeches ever again because of that.
As you can tell, Keith's blood pressure is getting up. He is awake now. I am awake now, and we're glad to have you with us. Keith Boykin, author of the book Race Against Time, The Politics of a Darkening America, which I will get to, of course, on the other side, with a great deal more to talk about. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Good morning, I'm Ree Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network.
As I got a chance to meet all you and to hear what you guys feel about this country.
Georgia Republican Herschel Walker's urging his supporters to keep believing in the Constitution. Speaking after he lost to incumbent Democrat Senator Raphael Warnock in Georgia's runoff election, Walker told his supporters that he doesn't want them to stop dreaming or believing in America. Warnock beat Republican Herschel Walker, giving the Democrats a 51-49 seat majority in the Senate.
Voting is faith put into action. And Georgia, you have been praying with your lips and your legs.
And that's the latest. I'm Ree Harris on the Black Information Network.
Crash in Newholm, welcome to Soul Lane 5 northbound before the 14, and traffic backs up to the 210 freeway. Crash in Mission Hills on the shoulder, 118 westbound past the 405. The 118 is slowing down from the I-5, but that's clear enough. In South Lady, watch for vehicles stalled on the 110 northbound past Manchester Avenue. That's stuck in the carpool lane. And in Santa Fe Springs, had a bad crash, 605 northbound at Telegraph Road. Those vehicles made it to the shoulder, but still seeing heavy delays on the 105. Got a motorhome stalled in Laguna Hills 5 northbound at Alicia Parkway. That's got the left lane shut down.
Dell's Days of Deals start now with savings on select XPS laptops and Alienware PCs powered by 12th Gen Intel Core processors, plus savings on accessories and free shipping. Call 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Cleveland beat the Lakers by 14 to snap the Lakers' 3-game winning streak. The Cavs got a break when Anthony Davis left the game late in the first quarter with flu symptoms and did not return. Donovan Mitchell scored 17 of his 43 points in the fourth quarter to carry the Cavs. LeBron had 21 points and a season-high 17 rebounds. The Clippers are in Orlando tonight. The Rams were the only NFL team to claim quarterback Baker Mayfield off waivers. Mayfield was cut by Carolina on Monday. Mayfield has struggled since coming into the league as the number 1 pick in the 2018 draft. The Rams hope he can learn enough of the offense to play a few snaps Thursday night against the Raiders. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by MVP Accident Attorneys. When it comes to your settlement, we're a slam dunk. Call 833-MVP-WINS or check their website at themvp.com for a free case review.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call on me, your MVP.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
At the Strategy Center, we have a lot to celebrate. Join us Saturday, December 17th, 12 noon to 4 p.m. for our annual holiday block party at Strategy in Seoul, located at 3546 Martin Luther King Boulevard, Los Angeles 90008 on King Boulevard, 1 block east of Crenshaw. Featuring food from Earl's on Crenshaw, Afro-Cuban drumming with Richard Marquez, and ornament making for kids of all ages, and more activities for children. Help us celebrate 33 years of fighting anti-black policies in LA. We want free public transportation for everyone in LA and 50% of all public and private jobs set aside for black applicants. Did I mention a live DJ and karaoke? You do not want to miss this. Join us on December 17th from 12 to 4 p.m. at Strategy in Seoul, 3546 West Martin Luther King Boulevard. Visit our website for more information and RSVP to www.thestrategycenter.org.
Congratulations to Trinity Unlimited Childcare for being KBLA Talk 1580's Office of the Week. Into your business today in the KBLA app or KBLA1580.com for the Office of the Week. Congratulations to Trinity Unlimited Childcare.
Central Neighborhood Health Foundation is a full-service network of federally qualified health care centers that serves local communities throughout Los Angeles, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. CNHF clinics provide low-cost to no-cost, compassionate, comprehensive, quality health care, which includes primary care services for chronic disease and diabetes management, pediatric and women's services, preventive care, vision and dental screenings, COVID-19 testing and vaccines, flu vaccines, behavioral health, HIV, and substance use services. Virtual telehealth visits are available from the comfort of your home with highly qualified physicians and medical professionals. CNHF also provides peer support specialist training and help with housing navigation. Central Neighborhood Health Foundation. Your wellness is our priority. Comprehensive care built on trust and respect. For more information, visit cnhfclinics.org or call 213-536-5815 today to locate a clinic near you.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio, KBLA Talk 1580.
All right, Keith Boykin, as promised, we'll get back to you and let you finish the point you wanted to make when I only gave you a minute to get this started before news, traffic, and sports. Our guest in this hour is Keith Boykin. We're talking politics, all kinds of politics in this hour, given what happened last night in Georgia, where Raphael Warnock went on to victory last night, giving Democrats the 51st vote they needed and wanted. Not needed, they were going to control the Senate either way, but they got a bit of a cushion now with this 51st vote given Warnock's victory last night in Georgia. Keith Boykin, national political commentator, New York Times bestselling author, former White House aide to President Bill Clinton, and author most recently of the book Race Against Time, The Politics of a Darkening America. I'd ask Keith before news, traffic, and sports how he processed that this party that so values the issue of right to life and always puts abortion at the top of the list of issues that matter most to them, could see their way to not just voting for a man who allegedly has paid for a number of these procedures, according to women who came forth during the campaign, but beyond that, that these white evangelicals in Georgia could not bring themselves to vote for a black evangelical who pastors the church, once pastored by Dr. King and his father, co-pastored by King and his father, Daddy King, None of that seems to make sense in one realm. In another realm, we totally get it. White supremacy is still alive and well in this country. White domination is still alive and well in this country. But Keith, I cut you off, and you were just getting ramped up talking about the fact that they have no business quoting Dr. King. Go ahead and finish your point, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, well, one of the things I was going to mention is that there was a poll done in 2011 when Barack Obama was president.
Mm-hmm.
And the poll showed that only 30% of white evangelicals said that an elected official could fulfill his public duties if he committed an immoral act.
Mm-hmm.
That's only 30% in 2011. Then 5 years later, when Donald Trump wins the nomination for the Republican Party, they went back and asked the same question, and suddenly 72% of white evangelicals suddenly said that it doesn't matter if a politician commits immoral acts in office. The same people who are willing to hold Barack Obama to the highest possible standard were willing to completely ignore it with Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
This is after all the pea grabbing and everything else he was talking about, and the adultery and everything else, the lies that he was engaged in back in 2016. It was clear then that this was a fraud. I was watching TV earlier today. I was watching CNN, I think, or MSNBC, and during a commercial break, I saw Franklin Graham on TV selling something or another. I don't know what he was selling, but I immediately turned the TV on mute because I know that he's another one of these Trump supporters. And I do not understand how these people who call themselves pro-life, who call themselves believing in family values, who believe in Christianity, can say this while they're supporting somebody, Donald Trump and others, who are antithetical to everything they say they believe in. But I think there's another issue here, Tavis, and you know this better than anybody. The way that black people practice Christianity is not the same way that white people practice Christianity. And for black people, we have a liberation theology tradition, a tradition of using our faith as a way of saving us and not as a way of repressing us. And so I think for a lot of white Christians, I think they're part of that same legacy, white evangelical Christians, not all of them, but some of them are part of that same legacy of the people who defended slavery and segregation. Yeah. Jerry Jones, I don't know whether he considers himself a Christian now, is the Dallas Cowboys general owner, and this photo comes out of him essentially being a part of the group of people who were trying to stop the Little Rock Nine from entering the school, and he just shrugs it off and people move on.
Yeah.
There's so many double standards in our society in the way that white people are judged, the way that black people are judged, and this is just another example of that.
Speaking of double standards, and since you mentioned Jerry Jones, let me just give a shout out right quick to LeBron James. I could have done this a couple of days ago and just never got around to it. But since you mentioned Jerry Jones, you bring it back to my mind. So, again, speaking of double standards, LeBron, you may have seen, said the other night after one of the games, the press always has access to the locker rooms after the game. And LeBron, said to the reporters the other night as they were walking away, so they were basically done talking to him as they were walking away. LeBron says, and I'm paraphrasing, "Hey guys, hold up one second. I've been waiting for y'all to ask me a question about the Jerry Jones photo." And in all these questions, y'all have not gotten around to asking me, giving me a chance to sound off on the Jerry Jones photo. Now, when Kyrie got in trouble in Brooklyn, y'all couldn't ask me enough questions about Kyrie. But I've been waiting on y'all to ask me just one question about Jerry Jones and this photo of him in this crowd of white folk taunting these black students as they were trying to enter Central High School in Little Rock, where he grew up. None of y'all have gotten around to asking me a question. And as you might imagine, Keith, there was radio silence in the locker room when LeBron raised that particular issue. So I just want to shout LeBron. I mean, LeBron fascinates me, and sometimes he does things that they just tickle me. And it was but it's a beautiful thing to see athletes express themselves. And people don't always agree with LeBron, and I'm not sure LeBron and I always agree with each other. But I love these moments where these athletes take the platform that they have to press these issues that need to be pressed about so many of the double standards in our country. And that's why they say, just shut up and dribble. They don't want that coming out of LeBron's mouth. So just shut up and dribble. Yeah. But I thought it was powerful of LeBron the other night to make that particular statement and to make this comparison, again, about this double standard between them pressing him on Kyrie and demanding that he comment on that. But nobody wants to give him a chance to comment on the photo of Jerry Jones in the audience, this crowd rather, in Little Rock. Speaking of double standards and speaking of Donald Trump, back to the issue that you raised earlier that I want to give you a chance to respond. I love how when I talk to you, you raise your own questions. All I'm doing is circling back to things that you've raised, Keith, that I want you to answer. So you said earlier in this conversation that you aren't sure even after last night. And to put a finer point on it, before I ask Keith this question, the preface is this. Donald Trump lost big last night when Herschel Walker lost because Donald Trump recruited Herschel Walker to move from Texas back to Georgia to run in this race. And there are any number of candidates, as we know, across the country that Donald Trump picked and supported who lost. So here again is another loss last night. This one, as Donald Trump is already on the campaign trail trying to become president again in 2024. So the issue you raised earlier was whether or not after last night we will start finally to see them sort of backing away from this love affair that they've had with Donald Trump. So you teased that, and I respond to it.
Yeah, I did tease that. You said something else that I want to get to real quickly before I get to Donald Trump.
Sure.
When you mentioned LeBron James, I also want to mention Brett Favre.
Yes.
Because Brett Favre was essentially stealing money from black people that was meant to go to poor black people in Mississippi.
That's right.
And that they just swept that controversy under the rug after a few days too. But Colin Kaepernick and Kyrie Irving, we hear all about them forever and ever.
That's right.
So I do think that we do need to have some sort of consistency in the reporting goes on. But going back to Donald Trump, I don't think I've been saying this for years, well before he ran for president the first time. I don't think Donald Trump wants to be president. I don't think he wanted to be president last time. I think Donald Trump cares only about one thing, his own ego. And the only reason he declared his candidacy for president, I believe, well, I can't say we know, but I firmly believe it's because he was trying to escape an indictment from the Justice Department.
Yeah.
And so a few days after he announced his campaign for president, then we found out the Justice Department appointed a special counsel to go after him instead. And Donald Trump is basically the head of a criminal enterprise. I mean, he's a mob boss, essentially. And yesterday, his own company was indicted. The first time in history a former president's company has been not indicted, but convicted of a crime. And so the idea that the Republican Party would still hitch its wagon to Donald Trump after he's lost the popular vote in 2 consecutive presidential elections, and led an insurrection against him, and led them to lose the House and the Senate, and they won the House back barely, but not because of him, in spite of him, but led them to lose power, lose seats, and historic losses, is a reflection of just how brain dead and corrupt the Republican Party has become. They've become afraid of their own shadow. They're afraid to speak up against Donald Trump because Donald Trump represents all of the worst demons of the Republican Party that they have been quietly trying to encourage for the past few decades, but trying to keep at arm's length and keep under the wraps. Donald Trump came and exposed all of that, and now they can't control it. It's Dr. Frankenstein and the monster, and Donald Trump is the monster they have created. The problem is it's not just Donald Trump. I heard somebody say recently that, Ron DeSantis would bring a return to normalcy for the Republican Party. Ron DeSantis is just Donald Trump with a law degree. Ron DeSantis is essentially the same person as Donald Trump, but he's just more clever in the way he is able to articulate his views and ideas about it. But Ron DeSantis is just as threatening in the stunts and the political chicanery that he engages in, I think, as Donald Trump. And perhaps he might even be more threatening because at least he understands how government operates. Donald Trump didn't.
Yep.
If Donald Trump understood the way government operated, he could have essentially orchestrated a coup to take over the entire country in 2021.
Very quickly, in 30 seconds here, we'll continue in a moment. The other thing that, to my mind, Keith, I want to see if you agree, that makes DeSantis more dangerous for me, which is the same thing that makes Mike Pence more dangerous for me, although I don't think Pence has a chance at this point. What makes DeSantis more dangerous for me, though, is that unlike Trump, he is, in fact, an ideologue. Trump's not an ideologue.
Right.
Does that make sense to you?
That's exactly my point. Donald Trump does not care about the Republican Party. But that's the reason why the evangelicals have this unholy relationship with white evangelicals have this unholy relationship with him, because they knew they could get him to do whatever they wanted him to do, because he didn't have any political beliefs. He's been a Republican, he's been independent, he's been libertarian, he's been all over the place. but he's been a Democrat. Donald Trump only cares about Donald Trump. I don't even think he cares about his family, except to the extent that it might reflect on him. But Donald Trump is willing to tell anybody down the river to protect his hide.
Yep. Keith Boykin's most recent book is called Race Against Time, The Politics of a Darkening America. When we come forward, I want to ask him again, given what we saw last night, given that Donald Trump is back in the race for the White House, given et cetera, where he thinks we are right now in this present moment in the race against time vis-a-vis the darkening of America. You're listening to Keith Boykin on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
The state task force is getting closer to identifying what reparations will look like in California. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by CaliforniaBlackMedia.org. The California Task Force to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans will be conducting its last meeting of 2022 on December 14th and 15th at Oakland City Hall Chambers, beginning at 9 a.m. with time for public comment. Meetings will be live streamed on the task force website or on ETM Media YouTube. Task Force Chairperson Kamala Moore says that the next meeting is of high importance and will include an in-depth conversation about redress and repair. So far, the task force has determined a conservative estimate of 2 million African Americans in California who have ancestors that were enslaved here in the U.S. They are still determining what or how much compensation should be. Let's start the conversation on social media pages at KBLA 1580.
Bring in the new year with Ted Williams. He's coming to Ontario in the Toyota Arena December 30th. And in Los Angeles in the Microsoft Theater December 31st.
I don't know what I'm going to do about this light bill. Just hit the blunt one time and see if it don't change your perception of what's important in your life. I don't know what I'm going to do about this life. Them blunts. I got 12 candles. I've been waiting to burn them.
He's back with an all-new show. It's the award-winning comedian, Cat Williams.
Just so you knew they was lying, they said some next that don't even make mathematical sense. They said there's a chicken wing shortage, but we got plenty thighs.
Cat Williams with his special guests, Mark Curry, Tommy Davidson, Tony Roberts, Daphne Springs, and Pretty Ricky. In Ontario, get tickets at Ticketmaster. In Los Angeles at AXS.com. Bring in the new year with Cat Williams.
Health is Wealth and Medicare and Covered California's open enrollment for medical insurance is here. RHJ Insurance Agency can help you find affordable rates and the plan that's just right for you and your family. Call 562-204-6120 for your free quote. Don't leave your health to chance. Open enrollment is here and affordable coverage is just a phone call away. Call 562-204-6120 for your free quote and get the coverage you need. Go to www.rhjins.com.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to Keith Boykin on KBLA Talk 1580. Keith, I loved your book when it came out. I heard you on the Quarterlife show. Had a great conversation with him, the two of you did. I didn't get a chance to interview when this text came out, as we've had many number of conversations, of course, over the course of your career and my career. But I got the book, and I read the book, and I love the book. It's called Race Against Time, The Politics of a Darkening America. The question I want to ask you is, where do you think we are right now? I mean, you write these books, and you've written many, and I've written many, and it's always fascinating for me to talk to authors of books, sometime after the book has come out, right? Sometimes years later, and you ask them. I had Joan Walsh on the program the other week, and I was asking Joan Walsh about this great book she wrote, 10, 12 years ago, and asking her where she thinks we are now, given what she had to say in her text then. So given what we saw last night, that the whole nation is talking about, where do you think we are right now in this race against time vis-a-vis the darkening of America?
Well, this has been a long struggle. I don't know that we're going to have an answer to this question anytime soon, but my book came out shortly after the insurrection last year.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, I'm not. I think we're dodging a lot of bullets right now. I mean, we could have had a crisis of democracy just a month ago if a lot of these election deniers had won. or if more of them had refused to accept the results and the Republicans had gone along with that, that could have created another crisis of democracy. But I think we're just kicking the can down the road right now. I can see this happening again in the future because there's the kindling wood has been put out there, and all it needs is someone to light a match to get it started again. And Carol Anderson writes about this in her book, White Rage.
Yes,
that the trigger for white rage throughout history, all the massacres and violence and lynchings, has always been black success. Every time black people accomplish something, there's a reaction, a backlash from white people. When Barack Obama was elected, when the Civil Rights Act was passed. And so I think we're going to continue to see that as black people make more progress in the future. But I'm also worried, though, because I don't think that a lot of us really fully understand what we're up against. I don't think that just the passage of time is going to make everything better. As Dr. King warned us that time is neutral. We have to use it constructively, but it can also be used destructively. Mm-hmm. And we have to use our time knowing that just having more black and brown people in the world is not going to create a better, safer, more just world. We have to actually create laws and policies and do things to make that happen. It's not going to happen on its own.
Yeah. In our remaining moments with Keith Boykin, and by the way, Carol Anderson was just a guest on this program, and he's quoting her book, White Rage. It was a great conversation. That's why I love the fact that all of our programs, once they broadcast live on terrestrial radio, become podcasts. And all of our podcasts are stored. If you did not hear the conversation we had with Carol Anderson, you must go to our platforms, check out the podcast of that conversation. You will not be disappointed in our dialogue some weeks ago here on this program with Carol Anderson. But when we come forward in our remaining moments with Keith Boykin, I want to ask him a question about what he makes of these African-American firsts. He said as we continue to do things into the future. So Raphael Warnock made history last night. We're celebrating Karen Bass this weekend with a big block party here in Leimert Park. She made history, is making history here in Los Angeles. And so I want to get his take on politically what it means that we are still making history in some pretty monumental ways. Keith Boykin's final comments when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where we turn red lights to green lights and keep it moving.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us in celebrating the season of giving by being part of the solution. As we enjoy great food, family, warmth, and well wishes in whatever our festive tradition may be, we share the beauty of the season by reaching out to the less fortunate. Please help us to help others with the KBLA Cover the Houseless Cozy Community Coat and Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours. Now through December 20th, all of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net. And together, we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
Three-time WNBA champions, the Los Angeles Sparks, jump into their 27th season this summer with the most games ever in league history. Every seat in crypto is an incredible ticket into an experience of world-class professional basketball, jam-packed with in-game entertainment. Now is the time to get ahead of the holidays. Don't be the person grabbing a gas station gift card. Impress your fam and friends with an unforgettable experience. Secure your seats now at lasparks.com/tickets.
Strengthening the Black Village is a nonprofit offering free, effective Black parenting training to those court-mandated to take parenting courses, and we're open to others. Register for our February 6, 2023 course by calling 323-804-8469. That's 323-804-8469. Visit strengtheningtheblackvillage.org. That's strengtheningtheblackvillage.org.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
As I said a moment ago, Keith, we're celebrating with a big block party. Welcome home, Mayor-elect Karen Bass. A big event here in Leimert Park this weekend featuring the mayor-elect on stage with us live this Saturday, 11 a.m. The event's from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Great performances from Brian McKnight and Guapole and Club Nouveau. It's going to be a great day in Leimert Park this Saturday celebrating Karen Bass. But she makes history in L.A. Raphael Warnock makes history last night. We're continuing given the opportunity to show that we can govern, and not just govern black people, Keith, but govern writ large. Keith, I lose you. Keith. Did you hit your mute button?
Can you hear me?
I hear you now. I hear you now.
I was speaking and then I realized I was on mute.
Yeah. I figured the mute button was, yeah.
Yeah, we've done this over the course of the past few decades. Barack Obama being elected, Kamala Harris becoming the first black woman vice president, Ketanji Brown Jackson being nominated to the Supreme Court and put on the Supreme Court, Karen Bass being elected the first black woman as the mayor of Los Angeles, Raphael Warnock, as I said before, the first black United States senator, Democrat elected from the South. But I think, there's some warning signs. One is that representation does not equal results.
Yes.
Just because we elect somebody doesn't mean that is going to change anything. Two is that we have to hold our leaders accountable even after we elect them, that we can't just vote for somebody and disappear for 2, 4, 6 years and think that everything's going to be okay. If they don't do what we like, our job, since we hire them, is to make sure they do what we like.
That's right.
You can't just check out and say, well, they didn't do what we wanted, so I'm not going to vote again. The system's rigged. That's not effective either. You got to hold their feet to the fire. And third is that we still have a lot of progress to go. It's a shame that we're having all these firsts in 2022, and we still have things that we haven't accomplished yet. There's still no black owners of NFL teams, for example. Right. So we have to stay engaged. We can't just rest on our laurels and say we've accomplished this, we dodged this crisis and that crisis, so we don't have anything else to do. I hate to quote this person because he's a notorious enslaver, but it's important to state this. Thomas Jefferson. Yeah. Thomas Jefferson said, "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty."
Nope.
And while he was enslaving Sally Hemings and others, he understood that our liberty, whomever he was referring to, it doesn't come on its own, that we have to fight for that to make it a reality.
Well, as my big mama said, I take your point, Keith, a broken clock is right twice a day. So Thomas Jefferson can be right, even as he's enslaving Sally Hemings. Keith Boykin would fit quite nicely here at KBLA Talk 1580. You heard him say a moment ago that representation does not equal results, and that we have to hold all leaders accountable, and that's why we run this promo all the time, that we are unapologetically progressive, but we're holding all leaders accountable to you. Keith Boykin, good to have you back on. Thank you for your time, sir. I appreciate you. His book is called Race Against Time, The Politics of a Darkening America. We'll talk again soon, Keith. Happy holidays, my friend.
Thank you. You too, Tavis.
My pleasure to have you on. Hour 2 of Tavis Smiley after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Ray Harris, and